Hi everybody, I'm Kelley Harrell, and you're listening to What in the Weird. The weekly rune is out this morning to general subscribers. It came out yesterday to paid subscribers, ad-free, through Patreon. You can subscribe to it there by searching for the weekly rune at patreon.com. And if you want to see a photo of the cast, which is lovely, you can find it on my Instagram, Kelley Soul Arts. It's also always in the blog post on soulintentarts.com as well. This week it's a big one. We transition from So'ilo as the half-month rune to Tiwaz, which I constantly mistype as Tiwaz, so if you tell people I said that, I'll swear you're lying. But this transition can be a big jolt for some folks. Where So'ilo is a winding down closure rune for the second et, Tiwaz is a bracing reminder that action is afoot and we need to be ready for it. That's one thing I love about the runes. They build in this range of states of being and experiences, and you never sit still in any one state for too long. Life keeps moving, and that may be the single most significant message underlying the Elder Futhark. It captures that sense of the turning wheel wonderfully, or not so wonderfully, depending on where you are on the wheel at any given time. Many people perceive Tiwaz as the bottom of the wheel, and maybe it is. So let's think back a bit to show how we transition from the first to the second et. We move from Wunyo, which is joy, into Hagalaz, which is not joy at all. It's hail, which represents some degree of devastation and the good, bad, and the ugly that comes with it. And then we have a similar transition from So'ilo to Tiwaz, moving from the second into the third et. So what is that about? What is that constant sort of up and down about in the flow of the Elder Futhark? So I can't speak academically to why that ordering, other than that's their alphabetic ordering. That's their original state of being. Metaphorically, the idea of life as a series of perpetually beginning and ending cycles seems very appropriate. The Elder Futhark is nothing if not a key to flowing with the forces of nature, and dealing with those extremes pretty much sums up the entire human experience, right? Again, Tiwaz as the bottom of the wheel? Maybe. I guess it depends on how you look at it. This stave represents Tyr, as in Tyr, or Tuisto, the Germanic god associated with Tyr. The complex mythology around both Tyr and Tuisto is glorious. It's one of my favorite stories in the ancient Norse mythology. And I highly encourage you to read up on both of these figures. But the scope of their stories is way bigger than I can serve in a short podcast. Maybe we can do that later. But the effect of their story is, well, okay. Both figures are survivors of terrible circumstances, which is why I call Tiwaz the survivor rune. Sooner or later, we're all faced with a situation in which we're forced to abandon our heart's desire. And in the case of dire survival, that heart song is usually something really basic, like human decency or health, vitality, well-being. It can be more mundane, and honestly, when I'm doing casts for other people, it usually is something more mundane. But the narrative of Tiwaz emphasizes war and battle, not little things, in other words. And realizing mid-conflict in those that your best just isn't going to cut it in whatever the present circumstance is. Tiwaz calls out the big life violations that leave us either stuck in the wound or moving full tilt through it with a plan B. Stuck in the wound is very much the stuff of shamanic initiation, which, if you haven't surmised by this point, I have functioned as a modern shaman for the last 20-25 years. Naturally, the story of this rune speaks volumes to me. But before I could recognize its message, I was a survivor of childhood sexual assault and endured PTSD up through my mid-adulthood. In fact, it was until I did my first soul retrieval, which, note to self, is something we should talk about in a later episode. But that is the crescendo of Tiwaz. My point in bringing this up is these such experiences are its focus. And this time of year, every year, we get an extra boost in the capability of meeting these kinds of life details head on. We get a boosted chance to live through the wound, beyond the wound. These elements are naturally in place, and we have an expanded opportunity to recognize that fact, to make use of them for our own growth and well-being. So my PSA around this is, whatever's going on in your life, whatever the stuckness, this is a good time to rally resources around it. This is a good time to realize whatever you've been forcing to work, it isn't going to, and that's okay. People see Tiwaz and cringe, no lie, because they think it means upheaval. They think it's a harbinger of upheaval to come, but that's not true. What it means is that you've been living in upheaval, and there is a pressure release if only you will use it. This is another one of those put the mask on yourself first runes. The underlying woe of Tiwaz is in not realizing that fact, such that you never get out of the wound. You never get to see or live or experience what's on the other side of it. Because in keeping with the mythology of Tiwaz, what's on the other side of it is victory. Plan B works. It's the one. We think of healing as meaning the stopping of a pain, the ceasing of a wound, and it is. And those are awesome outcomes. We're lucky if we get them, right? But sometimes it also means those end vitality, sheer wellness, glorious triumph. That is the complete narrative of Tiwaz. That's why when Tiwaz comes up in my casts, I see relief and release and what's beyond the horizon. I see an opportunity to do more than just live in the wound. So what's on your horizon? Are you capable of meeting it and moving on? These are the challenges of Tiwaz, and helping you meet them are its resolution. For this half month, that's the opportunity that's before you. That's it for this episode. That's enough, right? It's a big, tall order. So you can download What in the Weird on Anchor and listen to it there, which is available through Android or Apple. And if you're on Anchor, you can let me know what you think by hitting the call-in button. I would love to hear from you, and thank you for those of you who have made contact. You can also download episodes from Google Play or iTunes, and you can contact me at my Instagram, Kelley Soul Arts, or at my email, Kelley@soulintonarts.com. I am Kelley, and I'm wishing you well with Tiwaz. And this has been What in the Weird.